Hey, welcome to this week's Landscape Photo Review Club live stream. Hopefully we are live somewhere because I've changed my setup here and everything seems to be falling apart, which is fantastic. But we'll see. So if you can see this video over on YouTube, Facebook, drop me a comment, drop me a message, just so I can see that we are live. But regardless of that, we're going to be taking a look at some of the photos that have been submitted to the Photography Explained Photo Review Club on Facebook. We've not done this in a couple of weeks because I've had a few other commitments, which I'll talk about in a second. But there are a bunch of lovely photos here that we're going to take a look at. And the group is growing, another 100 odd members this week, which is cool. So before we get into reviewing the photos, just a quick note that the reason I've not done this for a couple of weeks is that our landscape mastery live training has started. So this is the live training platform. You can see here this week we just covered step-by-step framework to capture any image with perfect exposure and perfect sharpness over time. Looked at why ISO 100 isn't always the best shooter, hyperfocal distance, focus stacking, exposure bracketing. That's what we were covering in this week's live training. See a bunch of questions here from the chaps in the cohort. Each week within the program, we cover a different topic over 6 weeks. And then you can see here that on Mondays, we do the live training. So it's very much like what we're doing right now. And then we do a Q&A session. And if we just click on one of these, you'll see that we do all this training over Zoom, formal kind of training program as opposed to kind of more ad hoc, which we do on these live streams. Everyone gets to jump in, ask their questions. And if you would like to jump into the next cohort of Landscape Mastery, because the first cohort sold out pretty quickly, then head over to photographyexplained.com/mastery. It'll take you to this page. You can have a read about it, see what we're up to, see what we're doing over there. But if you click apply now, you'll see that we are completely and utterly fully booked for December. But if you put your name and email address in here, you'll get on the wait list for January. January is very likely to sell out within a week again, like what we did this first time around. Probably even more so because now it's by the time this next cohort runs, we'll have a bunch of before and after photos and all the marketing will get a lot more fancy and exciting. So yeah, very much this will sell out in January. So if you do want to work with me over a 6-week period where we help you take the best landscape photos of your career and start taking professional looking landscape shots, then drop your name and email address in here and we can potentially get you into the program. Cool. So that said, let's take a look at some images. I'm just going to do this from new posts this week. Usually I pull a series of images that I really like and then I throw them into Photoshop. Oh, I've just done all that without showing my screen. That was not ideal, was it? Okay, I'll very quickly just run through this again. Landscape Mastery, amazing program. You should jump in. 6-week live training. Here we can see what we've covered in this week. Bunch of questions, all fantastic. Classroom, see all the different topics that we're covering. So each week there's a live class. This is the one we recorded on Monday. You can see that's more of a kind of a formal training versus what we do on these live streams. So as a curriculum, I go through, I edit my photos, I show exactly what I'm doing to get the level of image that I create. On Mondays, live training, Thursdays, Q&A, and then, yeah, that's how it works. And yes, just landscapemastery.com, photographyexplained.com/mastery. Check out this page, have a look. And if you click that apply button, you will then see this page and you can drop your name and email address in there if you want to be alerted when the next cohort launches. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that all works. And with that, let's jump into some photos. As I said, I had like a dual monitor setup that I was running this on. It's a pain in the ass. And every Wednesday I'd have to reset it all up. And so I'm trying to narrow it down to one monitor on my laptop. But I now can't really monitor what you guys are seeing. Hence why there'll probably be some mistakes in this one as I get used to it. So let's just jump into this. Pari Gain. I'm sorry if I'm completely butchering your name. This is a really beautiful sunrise or sunset. Where are you? In Derbyshire, Harrowbarrow Rocks. So not too far away from where I am. Now, the issue with this is there is no clear subject and there doesn't have to be a foreground in a more telephoto shot like this. But because there's no clear foreground elements and there are no subjects, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be looking at. So you've got this wind turbine here. Is that the most aesthetically pleasing thing in the world? Maybe it could be if it was just cropped to this side of the frame. But then you've got these electric pylons, which are obviously really ugly. And the annoying thing is here, it looks like you've got a little bit of mist in the between this. Maybe it's not a valley, but this little bit of a dip, and you've got some, I don't know, clouds going on in the background. This is a opportunity, and you've got this beautiful little tree here. The shot probably is this little tree framed up with this background behind it. So I just copy the image and throw it into Photoshop here. The shot probably is, if I just get some color on my brush, probably you stood around here, stood here, shooting this tree, and this is you kind of framing. That would have been the shot, I imagine. Well, that's what I'd been looking for anyway, because that looks like a quite cool leaning tree, leaning down to one side. So yes, that's probably what I would have aimed for on this one. And then we've got another beautiful sky. The sky is a little bit odd color-wise, and I think you've got a wonky horizon. But Pete, it's a good effort. There's been quite a few of these nice skies in the UK recently. I don't know where you are based, Pete. But yeah, I'm just reading your comments here. I haven't changed the colors at all because altering the white balance seemed to either lose the blue or lose the red, which didn't seem to be an improvement. So if we throw this into Photoshop, let's just take a look, camera raw, at the color balance. You're probably looking at more of an orangey tone. It probably was more like that, I imagine, because this blue doesn't really exist in the sky. So it's going to be more fiery, I bet. Perhaps something more like that. Now, if you wanted to look at these two colors and adjust them separately, there's a bunch of ways of doing it. You can do it with the color grading. You can do it with the color mixer. I typically just use point color, so I'd be more selective. So I'm going to choose the color that I want. And I'll probably move this more towards like a yellow. And then that allows you to keep the blue in the sky that it seems like you're after in your comment, but adjust this so it's less fiery red, because that fiery red, I don't know if that exists. But this color I've seen plenty of times, and it's still just as pretty. So that's probably a more accurate image right there. But yeah, using the point color is the solution. But there's color calibration. There's 3 different ways to do that within Lightroom or Camera Raw. But yeah, so in critiquing the photo, there is no subject. This is the problem. You've took a picture of a beautiful sky with nothing in front of it. If I was out doing some photography and I saw this kind of sky, I would just be scrambling like a mad person, trying to get something, a tree, anything in front of this sky. So that's what I'd be doing. Cool. Appreciate the comments, Dave. Appreciate the comment, Conrad. Yes, hi Santa, nice to see you. This hat. So my other business is salesman.com, right? We do a lot of live training and coaching over there for high-level salespeople and entrepreneurs who want to improve their sales skills. Obviously, sales skills, complex sales skills are important for anyone who's trying to run a business, or obviously these specific sales roles with the people that we work in. And this hat comes out around this week. I work for all the live training, and it goes back in a box in my office and disappears again. So yeah, this is kind of almost tradition over there now that I do 1 video a year in the stupid hat, and I do the live training this week in the hat as well. Okay, Carol D. This to me looks odd. I don't know what's going on here with processing or HDR, or there's a bunch of AI going on. But if that is a real tree, which I'm not sure it is, because the dirt that's in this farmer's field here that's been, I don't know what you'd call it, turned over, the line here on this horizon just looks really odd. So I don't know if you do like a sky replacement here or something. There's a lot of masking issues around this tree here. So I think what you've probably done is a sky replacement at a minimum here. Just looks a bit odd. I think, Carol, if you come back into the Facebook group, Carol, upload the original photo in a comment here. I'll take a look at it. But yeah, it just looks a little bit too odd to me. So either you've completely butchered it in the edit, you've just overdone it, and you've done a sky replacement, or it's not actually real. It could be very well AI. So yeah, that is that. Thomas. So this is a better. That's a much better crop. So you've done what I was going to suggest. There's just too much stuff in the midground here. There's nothing in the foreground of interest. There's a bunch of buildings that I don't want to look at the buildings, but because there's more detail in them and there's more contrast, and you've got the brightness of these lights, my eyes drawn to these buildings. I don't even get up to the beautiful mountains and skyline that's behind. So I think you've done the right thing here in this kind of crop. Now you've got a leading line coming up to the mountain, and yeah, it's a fine photo. I think in this kind of environment, though, it wouldn't take that much effort to find a photo about a bunch of crappy buildings in the foreground. So yes, my feedback is right there. Argaea. Hopefully, I'm not too far off on that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So it's obviously been uploaded to photo, but I think through Facebook, but I think you've just not got a sharp image here. Some nice shapes, but unless you're really skilled at it, almost 100% of the time, this kind of image would look better if you could see the bottom of the tree, because now you just got these floating branches. So that's the critique on that. Again, can't see the bottom of the trees here, and there's a fence, and there's just a mist. So yes, this is more like a snapshot rather than a tree landscape photo. This is getting a bit closer because it looks more like a pattern, as opposed to, like, if you've got two sides, right, and you don't want to be in the middle. You want to either be completely abstract, so I'm struggling to see what it is, or you want to give me enough information where I can see what it is, and then I can build context around the scene. So this one, I know what it is, and it's not abstract enough, and it's just awkward because I can't see the bottom of the trees. This one, you're now getting into the realm of it being a little bit more abstract, and it's more about the texture and the shapes. And I don't care that it's not the bottom of the trees; that becomes irrelevant. But yeah, I think you probably don't want to. Obviously, it didn't look like this. This white balance is way off. So you can push the white balance to a certain extent with these photos, and especially so if you cropped into the center portion of this and just had it as a texture and a pattern, fine. But again, you're not quite far enough into the abstract where you can just obliterate the white balance and pull it one direction, and for it not to be like frustrating. Cool, nice. Sorin. So this last month in Great Canaria, Sony A7R III, 770 to 200. Nice. This is a great photo. I have nothing to critique. Carol is chiming in here saying it's not a landscape photo. I would consider this landscape photo. You've got a single, obviously the photo doesn't work about the single source of focus which were driven to this person. Even just they're looking down. Obviously the rope above them, so they're not leading this climb. But there's almost like when I look at that, having done no climbing like this, but I've done a little bit of really decent climbing, but nothing on the side of a cliff face like this. That to me is a look of like, oh crap, what's going on? Which is good. That little bit of emotion there. So yes, I'm not sure I agree, Carol, with your comment there. Yeah, I like it. I really like it. I mean, look, if you wanted to go kind of fake and epic, the old vignette around this is certainly an option. So create a mask, invert the mask, just drop the exposure, just to suck my eye towards this character a little bit more. So that to me is a stronger photo, but that's not how it looked in reality. So it depends if you're trying to show a bit more of a documentary style look at what was going on. Because that's a lovely photo as it is. Me personally, I would probably butcher it with a little bit more editing. But that's absolutely down to personal taste. But good job. I really like that photo. Cool. Here we have Kim. Tal Lake. This Wales could very well be Wales. I think the upload here or how you've exported the photo has unfortunately butchered it and stops me adding too much critique to it. Now let's comment on the parts that work really well. You've got the reflection and you're just touching these plants here, but you're not kind of overlapping them, which is great. There's a little bit of movement in the water there, which is fine. You know, it is a real life scene, and so that is what it is. I feel like two things here. One, this patch in the foreground is way too bright. So the image quality is so low on this upload that it's not going to be possible to really fix this. But I'll just try and show you what I mean. So there's two things. One, try to rate it. You do this in Lightroom Photoshop. Adding a radial gradient to this. It's going to reduce the highlights. It's going to look a bit grey because we don't have the data there. But that to me immediately just now my eye follows it as opposed to gets stuck on it. The next issue that I think you have is this patch here is much lighter than this patch of sky here. And that just wouldn't be the case. This cloud wouldn't separate this section and this section in such a dramatic manner. So if I just add a linear gradient to this top part, and usually we'd be doing this the other way around, but just brighten it slightly. I'm going to butcher the cloud slightly here. That to me makes the sky look a lot more real. Maybe you can have a little bit darker at the top, but you shouldn't have like it should be a gradient of the sky getting darker as opposed to the whole thing just having a line going across it, right, of just black. That's not ideal. Other than that, you've got this leading line coming across. My eye then follows, goes across here, follows here, kind of goes up here, gets kind of stuck in this area, which is good. We're spending time in the image. And again, you've got more kind of lines, converging lines coming down to that part of the image in the center, which is cool. I like it. It's a nice photo. It would be, I assume you're doing it black and white because it's the middle of the day and everything's a bit blown out and boring looking. But that is what it is. Black and white can sometimes work in those environments. But yeah, just be lowering the whites here and then making the sky a gradient if you want a darker sky at the top, which I don't know if you actually need to really darken the sky at the top too much. So yeah, but nice photo. I appreciate you sharing it with us in the group, Kim. Cool. Here we have David, a little winter photography from Yellowstone National Park. The problem you've got here is the light on these trees is really lovely. I think you've masked them a bit heavy. Because we can see some like haloing and edge, like especially around here. I just decrease the size of this brush. If you look at the edge around here, you can see that there's like this line going around. So you've darkened the sky too much, or there are other ways you can use to darken the sky. This haloing is a bit of a problem. The other problem is, what is this here? A little bit of snow drifting across could look really nice, but this is just kind of distracting. So maybe there's something that can be done. Maybe a different version of this shot could have been done, because you almost got these nice boulders. You might have some nice shapes in the foreground that we're just getting rid of for no reason here. So you got masking in the sky when you don't need to do it because there's a lot of contrast already. The edges of these trees are already quite bright, and then we've got a darker sides, the darker patches on the far side of them. But the main issue I think you've got, other than this just snow getting in the way, is that you're shooting up. If you were able to, let's say this slope continues and you're able to shoot a bit more down, this shot would have worked a lot better. As it is, it's a bit of a snapshot. So I would have looked to have shot down towards these trees from a higher perspective. It only has to be slightly looking down. Or I'd be looking to see, is there a tree that can be isolated because the snow stuck on them, especially that one, the snow stuck on them, and the light coming down is really nice. So yeah, good attempt, but a little bit of a fail in execution there. But lovely scene. And did you say you're in Yellowstone? So if you're spending time in Yellowstone National Park, obviously that you go to eventually you're going to win. You'll just destroy everyone else because it's such like an epic location. Cool. Here we have Russ, West Creek, New Jersey, maybe. I think Carroll is fair here. Focal point. The focal point is just a log. I don't think your comment is unreasonable either, Russ. Sometimes object photos don't have a specific subject. But the issue with this is, so if we don't have a specific subject, we want patterns, we want shapes, we want lines. So if you cropped into some of these grasses, maybe there's a shot there where you don't need a subject. But otherwise, there's nowhere for my eye to go because it's so horizontal, all the lines. I start somewhere and I go straight out the frame. So what we want with a subject is the scene to take us somewhere and get us stuck looking at something. So here, Carol's using some AI to put a boat in there. I mean, it's still not the world's greatest landscape photo, but I think there's a decent representation of the fact that something here would make our eyes stick a little bit more. I'd probably chill it on the clouds as well. The clouds look a bit heavy-handed. Clouds typically don't look like this. They're a bit softer, gentler because they are suspended molecules of gaseous liquid, I guess. There's probably a technical way to describe them. They don't typically have hard edges. You need really special weather conditions for that to be the case. So soft clouds is almost always the correct decision. Cool. All right, we'll crack on. Keep going. Here we have Mark. This image was taken late September of a Canon 5D Mark IV. I think this is a lovely image. The only thing that's letting you down here is just the weather. It's perhaps not the middle of the day because you've got some contrast on these mountains coming down from one side. But other than that, yeah, you need a bit more weather phenomena going on here. Maybe you could get rid of this bottom right-hand corner or this log here by either stepping further back, and so they become part of the image, or maybe not stepping too far forward to get rid of them. That might not be the shot either, because I like this line coming across from these logs. They're just on the very edge of the frame, and typically we don't want. It's fine for something to leave the frame and be on the edge. Inevitably, it'll be on the edge of it if it's leaving the frame. But typically, like this line here, we want this swooping in. I mean, I'll just draw it to demonstrate. But this line coming in and then going across, and you almost got the zigzags up to the peak here. You got these supporting lines coming in. Perfect. Really like it. I just wish there was a bit more space on this bottom side down here. I mean, it's up to you how you want to. If this will get that wrong every time. To me, I want to generate an expanse. I don't want to. I suppose content at word fill does work also. Okay, so we just added 5 logs there. But you get the point now. Hopefully this log now isn't on the edge of the frame, and this sweeping line becomes a lot more pleasing. Ignoring the fact that the generative AI just added 5 more logs there because it didn't know where else to put, which is fine. But even the framing of this, I prefer the framing of this a little bit better than the original shot. I still think this is probably a problem just because it's a little bit ugly. Maybe repositioning, you could have done something about that. Maybe not. But that frame there is, I feel, less strong than that frame there is slightly stronger. But we're kind of, there's not much more to it there. I think you've done a good job. This is a wonderful location. 5-shot portrait pano stitched together. Unless your 24mm lens wasn't wide enough, which it may not have been here, I don't know if you need 5 shots to stitch this together. Just food for thought. I need to do more panos, stitch panos myself, but I usually try and just get away with not doing them. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. Cool. Kim, lovely conditions. Sky does not look like this. We do not have black like this. Um, it just doesn't exist with the light here. So you've gone a little bit heavy-handed on the clouds, and the issue you've got is there's no foreground. And just put it in here because I wonder if you're kind of trying to put too much in, and is there a kind of a 16:9 crop more of just like that. So if you got rid of this bit in the bottom corner, you still got the light coming in. That's probably with what you had going on there. That's probably what I would be aiming towards. Something a bit more like that, something a bit more minimal, so the clouds themselves can become more part of the scene than anything else. But amazing conditions, yeah. I think you just butchered the clouds a little. It's just too much contrast up here. It looks unrealistic, and my eye is sucked away from what would be these beautiful lights and light beams coming down to just literally black clouds. Fine. Cool. Carol D. I like this. It's very nice. Not really landscape, but we will allow it. Which is, I think Carol actually commented on someone else's shot not being a landscape before. So fine. I don't know if Facebook is just butchering these uploads, but it seems like a handful of these images that have been uploaded have been at such low quality, not the artistic element of the photos themselves, but the upload quality. And it's kind of difficult to even see this one. But yeah, nice. Don't know, not really. There's no real. Maybe I'd have focused more on the bridge because that's the interesting bit. I don't know if you need all this on the left-hand side. Maybe there's a slightly different composition there, but it's a cool bridge wherever it is in Rotterdam. Here we have Gary. I'm very much an amateur photographer from the Forest of Dean. Nice. Landscape is my preferred genre. I'm self-employed, limited time to get out. And this is what we covered in the week 1 of our Landscape Mastery live training program. This is absolutely integral. Everyone watching this right now, if you want to get better at landscape photography, you've got to find local locations. That is the first week of the training that we do. Both I give everyone the framework, the step-by-step process to find excellent landscape locations that are local to them within an hour, less than an hour's drive. But then I also just go and get everyone's address or the rough area where people live, and I find them a bunch of locations, just to put them in that school community to go back and forth over. And that is absolutely integral because you are only going to get better at landscape photography by doing landscape photography. Sure, you can learn some of the basics. You can watch videos like this where we talk about editing. Editing is a different beast, I guess. You can learn that because you're going to edit out the computer. But actually composing your images, capturing enough scenes so that you intuitively start to understand what is good, what is terrible. Doing that over and over, taking shots over and over and over again, and reviewing your images is the only real way to achieve that. So good for you. Anyway, was the goal of that rant there, Gary. The more you can get out, the better you're going to get, mate. And also, you also then look into better conditions as well, which is part of the game, obviously. So the image itself, I like this fern on here. I like the leading lines. Come up to the water, got a little bridge. My eye kind of gets a bit bored around this area, which is what it is. Something that you may want to consider here is perhaps just cloning in a bit of leaves so that obviously I'm doing this very, very roughly, right? But just so that it looks a little bit more contained in the background. Obviously, you can do a much better job than this. But that to me now looks like a more like interest. It seems almost like it's more out of the way. It's not more exotic. That's the wrong way of describing it, but more remote. And immediately my brain goes, "Oh, I wonder where that is. I bet there's value there." A few things. I think you've got a lot of space to potentially crop on this right hand side. So maybe just a different form, a different aspect ratio, because there's not much going on here over here. I don't think you're really going to miss anything on that side of the image. And yes, it makes it a little bit more basic. It's all a little bit more centered. But I think these lines are strong enough to pull us around. And then I just wonder if there's like a bit of glow or something we can add to the background up here, just again to suck our eye up to it. I'm just going to, we'll try this. This might not work. This might be a terrible idea, but we'll give it a shot. We'll just try and add a little bit of glow, basically the autumn effect via Luminar Neo to the background up here, just to see if we can fake almost a little bit of light coming through. So just going to go to go, going to add a mask, add a radial gradient. So hopefully that comes across on the video, on the live stream. But that just, to me, immediately, that little bit of glow up there, I wouldn't say it transforms the photo, but it makes a big difference. And there's also an opportunity just to add a little bit of glow just to the, and this is only be like a tiny amount with this adjustment. Just a tiny amount to the front here. Maybe that's just increased the contrast of the brightness of the water a bit too much. But yeah, certainly the one in the background. Remove that one. Certainly the one in the background, I think, really works. And obviously, we're adding a little bit of artificial, something that wasn't actually there to this image. But that to me just sets things off nicely. And again, it now becomes a lot more pleasing to look at this bridge as opposed to having this big stinking bridge in the way. So yeah, they're the main changes I'd probably make. So we'd go from this. I think there's just too much here on the left-hand side over to this. And I think that's a nice little image. I'd probably add a little bit more brightness to the fern here, because I think that's a nice kind of, so I'd probably add just the highlights just a bit higher, just to drag my eye to it. And then maybe just to finish things off, just a tiny vignette just around the outside, just to, again, suck my eye more towards the elements of the frame that we want to promote. So I think there's a couple of things we can do with color balance here as well. And certainly things we could do with the water to dodge and burn it to make the lines more clear. But other than that, I think that's, within 3 minutes of editing, we've got a pretty big difference there from the kind of source material. But lovely location, Gary. I think you've done a good job getting out there, mate. Cool. Okay, so David, this is the image that I used on the thumbnail of this video, because this, as I was quickly flying through some of these images before, is a bloody lovely image. And your shadow down here, I'm sure you are capable of removing it if you chose to, but unless you have masses amounts of issues with AI editing, I just get rid of it. It's gone, disappear. We no longer have to think about it. So that would be my first critique. The sky looks slightly, to my eye, magenta. So if we go to the sky, let's create a mask of the sky. Oh, as everything slows right down. I'm just taking the edge off the magenta there. And I think you've probably overdone the rainbow a little bit. Rainbows obviously don't really look like that. So maybe I'll take the edge off the rainbow there. Otherwise, And you got some beautiful light. The only thing maybe we could consider is just painting in a bit of light here. Just almost like a bit of glow. So if I just do a bigger brush here, I'm going to, oops, get my brush. That'll help, won't it? Get my brush, increase the brush size, reduce the flow right down here. And is there just a little bit of glow that we can add? I should have done that on a new layer. Just to demonstrate. But just want to do it for a little bit of glow across the image like that. Just take some of the edge off because it's all quite sharp and contrasty, which is fine because it's a contrasty scene. I just wonder if a little bit of just gentle, almost like gentle light across the top of that. I'd do it a lot more delicately and I'd remove it. I'd certainly remove it here. I've gone a bit overboard, but yeah, I think that's something that I would be considering just to soften some of the top of this mound, whatever this is, almost like a volcanic mound. But yeah, lovely photo. I really appreciate you sharing that one, David. What you're saying about it. I want to thank everyone who commented and provided suggestions. The shot was taken about a minute before, so there's a previous one here, I'm sure. But yeah, get rid of the shadow. Surely get rid of the shadow. Fine. So we'll run through a couple more of these images. Mike, I think you've butchered the sky here. Or you've added a fake sky, as I think Roy is alluding to here. The clouds look suspiciously low to the horizon there. So yeah. But it's very Windows-esque photo, which is that Windows XP background is the most viewed photo of all time. Will probably never get beaten. Josh, you've snuck in a nature shot. But we'll allow it because I missed it. So yeah, as you can see, regular viewers, there are no random shots of stuff anymore because I've been going through and just reminding people that this is a group for landscape photography. So yeah, you've snuck in there, John, but that's fine. It's a nice shot. Fernando, this is a really interesting and beautiful scene, but what problem you have is, I don't know how you'd correct this. It depends what you've got behind you. But you need separation between these two layers. And almost certainly, if you get a bit higher, there was a shot here with these reflections in these trees. That's probably the shot. I mean, the mountains behind are epic, as anyone with any more than 3 brain cells would probably agree. But I think here, probably the shot is even just that on its own. So a long exposure, so stick an ND filter on your camera, do a 1 minute, 2 minute exposure to smooth out the water. But even the lines of the water look quite nice there if you capture it right at exactly the right moment. But yeah, I think if you can get up higher, shoot further down, so the perspective is from that direction. And if that was the foreground, midground, and heck, you could frame up this bit of hill behind it. You've got potentially actual banging shot there. But as it is, it's all just a little bit messy. You've got not a lot of stuff nothing in the foreground. You've got a lot of stuff in the midground and then nothing in the background. So that's what I'd be thinking about. But really cool location. Took the shot of a nearby man-made lake. Great. So if it's nearby, as I was saying earlier on with the training that we're doing in Landscape Mastery, if it's local to you, get here and just obliterate it. Shoot from every angle, come in a bunch of different conditions, and that's how you're going to. You can definitely turn a photo like this, which is, not the greatest photo in the world, into something decent by just getting here more often. Cool. We're going to do 3 more. I have Gabriel. This is cool. I think you need some light or something here. I think maybe you've darkened the shadow a little bit too much. So this, interestingly, has been a common thread today with images. So you can see this white halo that goes along all of the trees here. And that's because the mask around the trees has not been very strong. And so, or maybe, I think it's Gabriel, it's just brushed in the sky. And the problem with that is that you then don't get, if you don't get a perfect mask around those trees, it just looks odd. So I will create the right mask. How about we do it properly? Go to mask, create a new mask, and just let the sky. So Lightroom's done a half decent job here, but I'm just going to raise the shadows. I have to raise the exposure. So this is probably what the shot looked like. So now you can see the gap. There is no longer a gap. The bits of, for example, in between the trees here is the same color as the background. Whereas if we remove that, it just looks odd. So yes, you got to be really careful with these masks. This is typically where you want to use perhaps in this situation, like a something more like a highly feathered, and just so here you can see the sky's been darkened, but we don't have haloing around the edges of the trees. And then you'd probably, if you really wanted to get it even further, you might duplicate the mask, but just move it slightly further out to where you want the effect to happen. So there we've got a darker sky than what was actually probably shot in the original image, but without the halos. There's a bit of halo around there, but much less haloing. But it's a cool location. Certainly a cool location. Cool. So I appreciate you sharing that, Gabriel. It's not really a landscape. This is also not really a landscape. This, I'm just going to see what everyone else is saying. I think Richard might be onto something here, as is Jesse. HD straight from camera. Not a huge lover of HD. I think Jesse is onto something. I will go on the record that this image is fake as hell. Sorry, Carol, because you've posted a couple of images now, but this cow's face is not real. This cow's face is absolutely this cow in the background actually looks relatively convincing, but this cow is not a real cow. Even the grass is here. Background, these trees. I mean, there's also stars in the sky potentially when the sun's out. And so this image is not real and it will be getting removed. How can I be polite to Carol in case she also watches this and sees this message? Sorry, Carol, this image is AI. Happy for you to send over the raw file if I've got it wrong, and I'll publicly apologize. Can't use this keyboard. Publicly apologize. My microphone's in the way of the keyboard. I can't see what's going on. So, no warnings or anything, but that's definitely not a real image. And let's wrap up with that, right? There's a bunch more images here. We could spend another hour going through this. But I need to eat some food at some point. So there we go. I hope you all had a good time watching this. If you want to get signed up for the next cohort of Landscape Mastery, do go to photographyexplained.com/mastery and fill in the form there so you get on the wait list, because it'll just sell out in a week or so, I imagine, like it did last time. And yeah, I will wrap things up there. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you all maybe next week. But